Okay, I want you to totally rethink everything you thought you knew about astrology. Seriously, just set aside the daily newspaper horoscopes and that kind of vague, generalized intuition for a second. What if astrology wasn't just a broad feeling, but an incredibly rigorous, unified mathematical science? Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving deep into some highly classified research dossiers from the Jyotish Research Observatory, or the JRO, and we're going to see how they apply a unique, creative genius rigor to advanced Vedic and Western astrology techniques to prove exactly that.
You see, the JRO approaches astrological forecasting not with mystical guesswork, but with hard, pure data. We are looking at a methodology here that takes insanely complex planetary algorithms and actually transforms them into surgical precision. And their ultimate objective with all this math? It's something they call predictive sovereignty.
So we really need to nail down exactly what that term means before we go any further. Predictive sovereignty is defined by the JRO as the ability to forecast life events with surgical precision using a unified mathematical and astrological framework. In simple terms, it's the capacity to know not just what might happen, but exactly when and where it's going to happen, and achieving an over 90% confidence rate while doing it. Honestly, it's mind-blowing.
So, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to cover the grand unified theory, then look at real-world applications with the cosmic physician and the alchemy of wealth. After that, we'll dive into mapping spatial destiny, and finally bring it all together with achieving predictive sovereignty. Starting with Part 1, the grand unified theory, fusing the cosmos.
Right, so the JRO methodology does something incredibly ambitious here. It fuses disparate global astrological systems that have historically been kept completely separate, into one cohesive, multi-layered predictive tool. The Vedic or sidereal system, on one hand, absolutely excels at mapping karmic timing, dharma, and highly specific life phases. Meanwhile, Western tropical astrology gives us this profound psychological depth, focusing on personal growth and identity. By layering the karmic timing of the East directly over the psychological depth of the West, the JRO creates this complete, three-dimensional holographic picture of a person's life.
And that brings us to this beautiful aphorism from the JRO that really anchors their whole philosophy. They state, "The differences between systems are not contradictions. They are complementary perspectives on the same cosmic reality." They argue that the universe doesn't play favorites with one house system over another, They're all simply different geometric projections of the exact same truth.
Moving into Part 2, the cosmic physician, decoding the body's astrological blueprint.
To actually test this unified methodology, the JRO analyzed a specific case study, a native born on February 26, 2005. The synchronicity across systems here is just staggering. In the Western system, endocrine and nervous system sensitivity shows up via Moon-Pluto and Mercury-Neptune aspects. Cross-reference that with the Vedic Ayurvedic system, and boom, you find a Vata-Pitta imbalance with Kapha depletion perfectly correlating with that exact anxiety, digestive issues, and hormonal flux. Add in the evolutionary system, it reveals a soul-level wound around identity via Chiron in Aquarius and Lilith in Cancer. It's three totally different mathematical systems yielding one unified, incredibly precise medical verdict.
And this alignment manifested in a very specific life event. At age 19, the native underwent a hormonal intervention, or HRT. Now, impartially applying their methodology, the JRO dossiers interpret this purely through an astrological lens, viewing it as a physical manifestation of that Chiron soul-level confusion around identity. The native actually stopped the intervention after 7 months to return to their original path. But rather than viewing this linearly, the JRO framework maps this out as a profoundly necessary karmic initiation. It was a required, deep lesson regarding the sanctity of the physical body, ultimately positioning the native to become a powerful health advocate, what they call a wounded healer.
Okay, Part 3, the alchemy of wealth, calculating financial fortune.
Because predictive sovereignty isn't just about health. It extends into a rigorous financial forecasting matrix. For this native, their karmic wealth index clocks in at a massive 75.7%. So, the JRO is boldly revealing an incredibly strong financial destiny here. But, and unfortunately for anyone hoping for a get-rich-quick scheme, this wealth isn't just going to be handed to them. It requires a ton of discipline.
Let's break down the exact mathematical components building that 75.7%, because it's a weighted score. 40% comes directly from the natal wealth potential itself. Then 30% comes from timing activation, meaning the wealth is delayed, heavily activating only after the age of 30, and the final 30% accounts for karmic debt, which dictates that the native absolutely must earn this wealth through effort, service, and discipline rather than just inheriting it.
To calculate all this, the JRO uses a brilliantly rigorous 12-step financial forecasting system. We're just looking at the first 4 crucial steps here, but they are fascinating. Step 1 is a foundation audit, assessing the 2nd, 8th, and 11th houses. Step 2 identifies the wealth lugna. For this native, it's Virgo, which means wealth literally comes through analysis, healing, and service. Step 3 looks at the Parivartana activation, where the native's career and wealth are totally fused by Mars and Venus. And Step 4 maps the Jupiter-Saturn cycles to track exact periods of expansion and restriction.
All of that translates into a surgical forecast for life's biggest economic milestones. Because of that delayed activation we talked about, 2026 is merely a preparation phase. But right on schedule in 2028, the charts converge for a massive financial breakthrough. This accelerates into career mastery around 2035 and culminates in a peak wealth window in 2040. Just imagine having this level of strategic timing to launch, invest, and scale in your own life.
Which brings us to part 4, mapping spatial destiny, the geodetic blueprint.
Because in this unified theory, knowing when something happens is only half the equation, right? We also need to know where. To solve this, they use the astrocartographic matrix. This takes the natal chart and projects it across the globe, synthesizing local space, geodetic mapping, and relocation charts. By doing this, the astrologer can identify the exact geographic coordinates where the native's karmic potential for wealth, health, or career is mathematically maximized. It is literally mapping human destiny onto a globe.
And finally, part 5, achieving predictive sovereignty, the astrological singularity.
This is where every single separate element we've discussed merges into one. To achieve this, they utilize the Dasha integration tensor. This right here is where the unique creative genius rigor of the JRO truly shines. It's an incredibly complex, 4-dimensional mathematical framework. They take distinct ancient timing systems, like the Vedic Vimshottari and Yogini Dashas, alongside the Hellenistic Fritidaria system, and overlap them to find harmonic convergence. When all these independent mathematical clocks chime at the exact same millisecond, you get total predictive universality.
Now, to actually achieve that coveted 90+% predictive confidence, the data is strictly weighted. Think of it like a recipe. 30% comes from Vedic Dasha systems, 20% from planetary transits, both geocentric and heliocentric, 15% from secondary progressions mapping internal evolution, and the final 35% is derived from a really dense combination of solar and lunar arcs, midpoints, and fixed stars. When you synthesize this much dense data, you completely eliminate the guesswork.
But even after wading through all this super dense 4-dimensional math, the JR grounds it right back into the human experience with a really vital reminder. The chart is not a map, it is a compass. The astrologer is not a prophet, they are a guide. The goal here isn't to just be a passive victim of fate, it's to use the data to optimize your choices and truly empower your path.
Which leaves us with this final, pretty provocative thought. If the cosmos truly holds a rigorous, mathematically precise blueprint of your life, detailing your health, your wealth, your timing, and your ideal location, how are you going to use it to reclaim your own sovereignty? Because the stars might hold the pattern, but you are the one who actually has to walk the path. Thanks so much for joining this explainer, and keep exploring.